Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms.
Discuss and debate.
If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
Casey.
Charlie.
Cyndi.
And I'm Josh. And this is our very first discussion of Season 13 in person in the library. We had 5 great discussions held on Zoom this season. We had some great special guests, some great participants, but nothing beats a good old-fashioned session. It's great to have everybody back. Casey, welcome aboard. Cyndi, welcome back for your second season.
Good to be here.
And Charlie, welcome back for your 15th season.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. And I can't believe how quick it went. But we're here to stay.
Alrighty, we are going to be going over a non-fiction account written by John Hersey called Hiroshima. This is a very poignant and saddening piece, and
Have tissues.
the saddest part is that this really happened.
Yeah.
Discussion starter that I have for this is...
I mean, really, have tissues and a comfort food next to you because you'll need it.
On August 6th, 1945, the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima, killed 66,000 and injured 69,000 more people. More than half of the people were directly physically affected. The entire country, just the nature of what happened, it created a great sense of destruction. This non-fictional account was published in the New Yorker in its entirety in 1946, and follows 6 people that survived the bombing. Has this book made a difference on the way you view the use of the atomic bomb that would ultimately end the Second World War? What would have been a better alternate if there was one?
I think they did all the negotiating they could. I think they did all of the peace talks they could do. I think they did everything they possibly could. However, I still think it was... I think one would have been enough, let's just put it that way. But from what I've been told and from what I was taught, the second one was because I don't think they were going to surrender or something along those lines.
Yeah, that is that is the pretty challenging thing, is from a historical standpoint, from a U.S. standpoint, this decision ultimately ended the Second World War, and it did not happen. A lot more American lives would have been lost.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree.
But war in general is just very inhumane.
Right.
It's,
and there's even
no matter what way you put it,
yeah.
It's not, I mean, you can't really say it's U.S. as a whole's fault or Japan as a whole's fault. You can't blame civilians for decisions that the leaders make.
Exactly. And it's shameful. So many people, especially civilians and children, of course, I don't even want to mention it but it needs to be taught, it needs to be learned, and
yes.
Because we don't want to have this happen again.
I mean, with Hiroshima, the reason that they were going after them specifically was because of the military and industrial potential that they bear.
Yes.
They were really making a move to... Japan was looking to make it a chief location for advancement in the war, and the U.S. was looking to stop that, but the people that were affected were those that were just
minding their own business.
Yeah, everyday civilians.
Literally minding their own business. And I think, if I don't know where exactly I read this, but there's something about a person who was riding a bicycle, and he was just like, everything gone. And but the flash was still there, which is...
Did Casey, Cyndi, you wanted to...
Well, as I was reading it, I was impressed with, just stunned, really, the details. I mean, I felt like when the author was writing, he would pull you right in, and there were just details. So many things about what that moment was like that you would not find in an American history textbook, a world history textbook. They don't teach you these things, and to study them, you have to really tissue in hand, because you just really felt like you were there, and like you could see that flash and that bomb was going off, and the bookcase falling on the one, and all of these different things. Really, really horrific.
John Hersey is a brilliant writer.
Phenomenal.
He wrote one of his other noteworthy works is a fictional piece called The Bell for Donna, which has to do with he was a lower rank from the...
Admiral, was it?
He was in Italy.
No, I know, we discussed it. We did this one.
Yes, we did, back in season 6. The way that he opens our eyes to the human aspect of war and what it really requires in order to understand people and engage in that act of moving forward through one's actions or through one's mistakes.
I have met people, slight tangent, but there's a reason. I have met some people who are in their, they don't have arms or legs. They have disabilities from wars that they fought. The reason I'm saying this is because when you see somebody, and I know this is like a meme and whatnot on Facebook and Instagram and all that, but when you see a veteran who sometimes has a cane or the VFW hat, think about what they've gone through in their life. Think about what they went through, what they sacrificed, what they saw, because they can talk to us, they can tell us everything. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but I'm just saying, just think about something before you say something, is what I wanted to, the gist of it.
The other thing about the effects of what happened in Hiroshima, you could see one of them, their daughter became stunted in growth because it affected it affected their reproduction and their offspring. In some cases, it sterilized them.
Now that was the radioactivity thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And it was after, I think about, I don't remember exactly, 2 or 3 days after, the one girl, she was 20, I think, she was combing her hair was falling out. And I don't think at that time they knew the after effects would be. It's like, okay, this is terrible, it's over, then okay. And then a few days go by, and you're combing your hair, minding your own business, and it's like, what? Literally, it's like, and then the radiation sickness. I think that's what they called it.
As far as Cyndi was saying, is how it was written. As I was reading it, I realized that even though it was nonfiction, it felt like he was writing it in the format of fiction.
That's what I thought.
So I thought it was a fiction book version of the nonfiction story of Hiroshima. Like he was saying, these are, even though we don't know what happened to the people, this is what pretending happened. But I've researched these people, and they were real people. And this was real nonfiction. So I will say I like the fact that it wasn't written the same way as all nonfictions are written. That he made it very creative.
Yeah. I think he did that on purpose. Do you?
I
mean,
it was written in the narrative format, and it seems like he has that. He's the right kind of person to be writing something like this because of his ability in the craft of writing.
Well, and to answer your question, was there another option? I believe there's always another option, but I think the government purposely didn't tell us those options they had. They wanted to make it seem like they made the right decision. And I understand why they did what they did. The problem I have is that they never acknowledged it. They never, I mean, every December 7th, it's never forget. But they never talk about. And I understand that they were a victim, and that's why they did the bombing. But it doesn't change the fact that now that you know the horrible things that happened from your bombing, the least they could have done was, first of all, stop making these bombs. And even after they saw all the aftermaths, they kept building as if it wasn't a big deal. And then the thing that bothered me the most was that they found out all the horrible things radiation does, and yet they still use it to treat cancer. And it's like, but you already know what it does, so why would you...
Yeah,
I mean, we use it for power too.
There's just so many things that are done that we find alternate ways to do them, and yet we don't know how, or probably more likely we don't really want to do it.
Yeah, it's also
more don't want to.
Yeah, that's,
and it's going to cost too much money, and it's going to go over the budget.
I wanted to bring up the 6 perspectives that were made mention to in.
I noticed
this piece, and I think they were very conveniently placed on the very first page, at least in my when the bomb dropped, August 6, 1945, and they list all of the people and what they were doing at the time. It was 8:15 Hiroshima time, 8:15 in the morning. We had Miss Toshinki Sasaki, clerk at East Asia Tin Works. Dr. Masakazu Fuji, who was a physician at his own private hospital. Mrs. Hatsuo Nakamura, who's a tailor's widow and mother of 3. Father Wilhelm Kleinsorge, who's a German priest. Terafumi Sasuke. He has no relation to Miss Toshinki Sasuke, but Dr. Sasuke was a young surgeon. And Reverend Mr. Kayoshi Tanimoto was a pastor of Hiroshima Methodist Church, and he's probably the one that became the most prolific.
But now that you say, did he do that on purpose? Because I know that they told him what he was doing, but he wrote it in a sense as if he was there. Mm-hmm. And he witnessed everything they were all doing, and it made it... I guess his point was to say these were regular people like your neighbors, and Japanese army is the one who bombed America, not the regular Japanese people who had nothing to do with that, and yet you guys bombed the
and it was a directive of the leadership.
I think he was trying to make them look like friends as opposed to enemies.
Justify it.
And you can't judge an entire country based off of their leadership or their devout followers. You have to be... people are still people. Even the divide between the leadership, I know that the Reverend Tanimoto made mention to the fact that, as per pages 64 to 65, that sometime later, in a letter to an American, Mr. Tanimoto described the events of the particular morning that he heard Hirohito's voice for the very first time. At the time of the post-war, the marvelous thing in our history happened. Our emperor broadcast his own voice through radio directly to us, common people of Japan. It almost seemed like he was, they were not worthy enough of being able to hear from their leader.
And even an emperor, obviously, that's, that's your high. That's equivalent to the president of the U.S.,
Not necessarily.
Well, maybe. Like, maybe a governor.
They're more like a royalty figure.
Yeah.
In their own right.
Right.
A president is one that's supposed to be fairly elected to office.
Yeah, I know, but I was trying to, make a little bit of a comparison. Not too good, though.
Well, I'm thinking more like president to prime minister, emperor to king.
Yes. Okay. There you go. Even better. I also found on Google Maps and Google Earth, you can go to some of these places. I don't know if they're marked. I don't think they would be. But you can just go and just zoom in on it, and you can just see, because they said Hiroshima is a fan-shaped city, as per the book. You can see that it is literally fan-shaped. Oh my God! And you can also see the harbors, the port, docks, airport, parks, all these places. Obviously, this was back in 1945, 1946. The landscape has greatly changed. You can get an idea of where some of these people were. All these bridges, all of these little hidden nooks and crannies in the town.
Ever watch Iron Chef?
No.
Masaharu Morimoto, I actually learned, he was born in Hiroshima. It's quite something to learn. But he was born 10 years later.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know if it's still that way. Because I don't know if they paved over, but apparently for a very long time, 30, 40, 50 years afterwards. That's the thing about the atomic bombs was when people died on the streets, it caused a body marking.
Yes, yes.
And 30, 40, 50 years later, you could still see the people's markings in the streets.
Which is unfortunate.
And they tried to clean it out, but they couldn't. So I don't know if they repaved it, or if you go there today, it's still there.
What do you guys think of the particular subjects of the story, the perspectives, stories that they concentrated on?
I mean, for me, it felt like I wasn't reading about Japanese people. I felt like I was reading about fellow Americans, that they were living their lives. And I'm sure they knew what the war was going on, but they still had nothing to do with the decisions of their leaders. And they were just living their lives as regular. And I mean, it almost felt like I was reading a film, if that makes sense. Something I definitely wouldn't mind seeing as a film. I mean, I read it a while ago, so I don't remember particularly, but reading it just made me go, oh my gosh, these people weren't people. They weren't monsters or boogeymans who were trying to get us. They were people.
And I think it was especially important that people knew that in this country, because the fact that it came out at the time that it did, I think that it people should know who was really affected, and the people that were affected were just as human as they were. Different country, but
different practices,
same anatomy. What part in particular stuck out to you?
The ending, because with how bad everything was, I was shocked that so many people, even though everyone didn't die, I just assumed those who didn't die would die right after. They wouldn't live such long lives 20, 30 years later. I didn't think that they would be able to do that. So that was shocking that they were able to go back and talk to these people years later when it seemed like they should have.
Yeah, most of them, 4 of them were still alive during the 1985 interviews, because Father Kleinsorge and Dr. Fuji had died before. The others were still
unfortunate. Could have gotten their testimonies.
They lived solid lives, but one part that really stuck out to me was when Reverend Tanimoto was on This Is Your Life in America, and how they had the awkward feeling of him having to face the Captain Robert Lewis, who was the co-pilot of Enola Gay. So he had to face the person that was instrumental in the terror that was inflicted on him.
The thing about that is, I completely forgot. Maybe I'll remember when I go home. I was going to see if it was on YouTube, just because there are a lot of This Is Your Life on YouTube, and I was going to look that up. Maybe I'll remember to do that when I get there.
And it would be worth seeing the expression too, because the way that they described it was much more. It describes that sense of commercialism and capitalizing on people's reactions and emotions. You see that all the time in reality shows.
Yeah, it's not reality, you know. If 5 women were trying to knock a door down and see me, no, they wouldn't. It wouldn't work. No.
They're looking to provoke people.
Yeah. Not to question your level.
Do we have any final thoughts?
I was thinking, as I was reading it, I was thinking about the different things that prevented their deaths. The one person would to get off, like the simple things like getting off at a bus stop here as opposed to there, or going back into the house because you forgot something, or the phone rings. These little things that ended up saving. And those aren't the ones that were actually listed in the book, but the little things like that.
Oh yeah, and that's true with
and then those people were protected somehow, just in that moment, like that one little
those little details. Just between the coincidences and then the little details just make things even more engaging for the reader. As far as the coincidences, those are quite miraculous, the way that they were able to survive just on the basis of a split-second decision.
I'll confess this. I know somebody. This is many years ago. He was in the World Trade Center. And he left 20 minutes after. He was on the bridge. I don't know what bridge, but he was on one of the bridges. And then, I don't think he was working there. I don't know what he was doing there. He was there 20 minutes, and then, no, I lied. Before that 20 minutes, got to the bridge, and then he looked behind, and unfortunate. But it's also, for him, he was lucky. Other people, too, they were lucky. Getting donuts for the office party or things like that.
How would we rate this on a 0 to 5 scale with half stars permitted, Casey?
I know everyone hates it when I give it a 5, but I give it a 5 only because any book that I read that makes me research beyond the book is a good book to me. And I definitely had to go and research beyond what I read.
Charles?
A 0, because I cried like a 5-year-old. I mean it, I cried. No, I would also give it, I'm going to give it a 5. 5 cookies this time. 5, can we use cookies out of star instead of stars?
You can use cookies.
I'm giving it 5 cookies out of 5 cookies because, that's what you had to do research. I did a little bit of research as well.
And there's cookies over there.
I know. So I'm also trying to keep it a little lighter here, but 5 out of 5 because it was very thought-provoking. And it stuck out like, wow, this really happened. It's sad. Hopefully we can learn from it. In some ways we did, some ways maybe not so much. I don't know. I digress.
Cyndi?
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. In order for me to give something a 5-star rating, it has to be out of the park good. I can't find any flaw with it anywhere. And this author is so out of the park good that I want to read more of what he's written.
It breaks my heart, but I'm going to be giving it a 4. I think John Hersey is a fantastic writer. I think that this was a very insightful read. I think that there were parts that, to me, it did read like it was published as an article in a magazine. To me, I liked something along the lines of the Voices from Chernobyl. Svetlana Alexievich, she was just reporting their stories, their experiences, the nuclear accident in Chernobyl. The way that it was organized was very well done. I think that the way that they interweave things was very well done. I think that it was very fitting to engage in each of their stories. I think that I would have liked it a little better than would have kept that 1 star intact.
Yeah. I think an engaged reader is a reader who's going to continue to read. Not just because they have to, but it's like you have to have. Wow, this is like I don't want to put this down. And read. Some people love to read. Some people may not. So you have to give them something that they might like. Just saying. But this is something I could not put down. I had to actually use my phone too because my computer. But long story. But
I still highly recommend that people read this book.
I agree.
Very much.
Yeah.
It doesn't taste good, but I would definitely recommend reading it.
If you're interested, you can check out this particular book. You can find it in most places that sell them. Be sure to join us next time for another episode of Literary Gladiators. For now, keep reading.
Bye, everyone.
Hi there, this is Josh from Literary Gladiators, and on the next episode, Casey, Charlie, Cyndi, and I will be discussing No Aerial Experience Required by Annie Weinstein, which was featured in the spring of 2019's issue of Literary Review. If you like what you see on this channel, please support us on our Patreon, for the money that we make will allow us to provide you, the viewer, with more content. Thank you, and for now, keep reading.